Welcome to episode 8 of AI with Alaa. Today, my guest is Nikita Chernovalov. Welcome, Nikita.
Thank you, Ala. It's a pleasure to be here, and 8 is a very good number, very interesting. If you put it horizontally, it reminds infinity. So I wish you the infinity time
Amazing.
of your podcast, Al.
That's awesome. Nikita, you and I have had very interesting conversations off camera, and then we decided to bring this on camera because I think you will be my first guest who approaches AI from an angle that is not purely technological. It's more linguistic, it's more the literature side of AI and the philosophical side of AI. This is very interesting to me. But before we start, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about your background and tell me how did you reach this stage of approaching and thinking AI from that angle?
I've been in the industry of business and construction business, and namely lighting, for almost 25 years now. So it's a quarter of the century. So not all the time I was selling lighting. I was also improving a lot of procedures in the organization I worked in. And improving procedures naturally becomes impossible without technology, because everything is linked to a computer, everything is linked to a system. And systems improve, people improve. And that really caught my attention about how that all could be merged. Add to this my education. So by my first degree, I'm a professional educator, linguistics educator. And now, to be honest, it's the most captivating time for somebody with such background, because you are training, you are teaching AI, you are teaching it with words, you are then converting all this output into the real productivity enhancements at work. So all of that just excites me, to be honest. That's very
Amazing.
interesting.
Yeah, it is. And I think this is the first time we have a linguist, a professional linguist on the podcast. It's very interesting to me, the relationship between language and intelligence. I debated and I argued with my AI assistant Layla about this 3 years ago on a recorded conversation, and again when I hosted her on my podcast a couple of weeks back. And the question I asked her, and I'm gonna ask you now, is: do you think intelligence is the source of language, like most people think, or do you think language is the source of intelligence?
That's a great question. I think the difference between your podcast with Layla and podcast with real people is that just Layla doesn't get nervous.
Yeah.
So now thinking about this question, it really makes me nervous, because it's a very important question.
Yeah.
So what comes first? I think, therefore I am,
Yeah.
or something else?
Or I speak, therefore I think.
Could be, but
Yeah.
also you may not be able to speak, but you continue to think.
Yeah.
That's really, but let us maybe go back to what I think personally, although my opinion may hardly be called an expert opinion, but I think it is the intelligence that makes us speak.
Yeah.
So that's the connection.
The reason I always thought about that is you would when we were growing up and start to think about these questions, the sensible line of thought is, of course we speak because we have intelligence in the background. But then you start reading books about how humans evolved and how other life forms evolved, and you start reading the differences between humans and other animals. And one of the biggest differences is that humans have this sophisticated language versus no language, or much simpler language with other life forms, which led me to think maybe it's the other way around. Maybe we, humanity in its infancy, developed language and communication first, and that language and communication led to new synapses connecting in the brain and made us come up with more concepts, abstract concepts, and then become more intelligent. So yes, there has to be some basic core kernel form of intelligence at the beginning to allow you to come up with communication and language and speaking. What I'm saying is then speaking then makes you more intelligent, and then the process feeds itself.
The cycle continues. Well,
That's what I contend.
Great proposition, especially if we believe that in the beginning there was the word.
Yeah.
So at least there should be some intelligence somewhere to understand it and to hear this word, and then to start building on this.
Yes.
So that's what I think.
It's a fascinating topic. I think language is underestimated when it comes to importance and it comes to impact in the world of AI, because language is one of the main components of culture, where people decide their identity and where they belong. And I think you think a lot about these topics, especially in the frame of language bias in training these large language models. Tell me more about this. I mean, we've talked about this off camera, but I would like you to share it with our audience.
Oh, of course. So the text, the word, the thought, the words, the language, and when we are formulating ourselves, we're using the language, although we might necessarily be always thinking in words, but then we formulate it in a language, and as we formulate ourselves, words already becomes blockers. So we edit, we censor ourselves. Therefore, it is very important for us to achieve, especially in communicating with technology, which is, let's take it. Technology is non-emotional, at least as we know it today. It takes it for its values. So what is that value that the human person wants to convey? And we know that a lot of what we read, a lot of what we hear as a language form impacts us. So the language of a commander, the language of a lover, the language of a friend, it all makes us feel different. It all makes us do different decisions. So now, if we say that we did train AI using different language models, so then the natural question that I ask myself is, which language was that? And if we say that majority of the AI today was trained on the English language, the huge number of knowledge corpus is created in the English language. Therefore, it carries with it its thought, its school of thought. Therefore, the technology that we are now using to communicate to and to get an answer to our questions brings back all that corpus of knowledge that it was trained on.
Very interesting. So what you're arguing about here is currently the top AI labs in the world are either in the US or in China, right? On one hand, you have the big four in the US, or the big five now, OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, xAI, and Meta. And then you have the Chinese competitors, super strong competitors. You have Alibaba, you have Kimi, you have DeepSeek, you have Zed.ai, and you have others. And one is training on predominantly English text. They're training their models, and one they're training their model on predominantly Chinese text. And in your opinion, this brings with it an inherent bias to either the Western culture represented by the American labs or the Chinese culture represented by the Chinese lab.
That's correct. That's what I mean. So Chinese being not accessible by a lot of people outside China as well. It's just not everything is open. And even if it is, how do we communicate with this? We communicate it in English. Or we can communicate it in our native languages as well. Yet the knowledge it was trained on predominantly exists in China and made on the Chinese sources.
Okay. So how do you propose that we remedy this bias?
Honestly, I believe that it should not be fixed. It should not be treated. It should be left to acknowledge its existence. Yet, what about other nations? What
Yes.
about other cultures? What about other value systems? Because they are lagging behind. And this is where I see this conflict that if you wanted today to create a system, an AI system, trained based on, let's say, Arabic or based on some of African languages or some minor languages. So you would have used the technology sourced either from China or from the US. So it would carry with this its bias. So how to make it absolutely sovereign system, and that's a question. How we by importing the technology and importing the knowledge, are keeping that identity and sovereignty of the AI system.
Okay, very interesting. So I think what you're referring to is the fine-tuning process. So let's say a company in the Arab world are trying to create an Arabic-speaking AI, an Arabic-speaking LLM. Most of them are not training an LLM from scratch on Arabic corpus of text. Instead, they are starting from a pre-trained AI that is trained in the West or in China, and then only adding the superficial layer at the top of expression, of Arabic language expression. But what you're saying is, because this is superficial, underneath it, the AI is still carrying with it the values of the language and the culture it was trained on. And in this case, it's either the Western or the Chinese. So the Arabic veneer is still just a, a, a Westerner brain talking in Arabic or a Chinese brain talking in Arabic. And that's not it's low fidelity in capturing, say, an Arabic set of values.
Absolutely. And in most cases, you would have said, why would I need that? So what I need from AI, what I need from a technology is just maybe a quick productivity fix. So I need to make a quick analysis or a quick research. But as we know, this is not the only thing that we use this for.
Yes.
So if we are talking about integration of AI system into government, in educational systems, in healthcare systems, you would probably want to bring your cultural identity, and you probably want to bring your that knowledge that your civilization amassed with itself.
Yes.
So and when we are speaking about even the language part of this, so even today we can communicate with system in our native languages, yet it is easier for us to just converse with it if we know English in English. It just feels more natural, at least for me. I'm a bilingual, so I think in English and as well as Russian. Yet I find that very often it's just more natural for me. The flow of the process happens when I converse with AI tools in English.
Ah, that's an interesting thought. So what happens if we just do an experiment where you are conversing with AI? Let's take ChatGPT in English for 5 minutes, and then you're having the same conversation, and you're asking the same questions about the same topic, but end to end in Russian. Okay, have you actually tried this, and do you find differences?
What I've experimented with is the language abilities, not as much as finding the philosophical abilities. I'll get back to this in a second. Let's take a language as an example. Arabic, so as Russian, we don't use the verb to be. We skip it. We skip that copula. So now for the AI to reason and to understand what it actually means, it happens instantly, and it happens very well. So if I say, I tired, we're doctor. So this is basically me speaking, using English words and verbs to say something which I would say in Russian normally, and I would be understood perfectly well. So what AI does today, so first of all, it understands the semantics of it. Second, it understands the pragmatical part of it. So it understands that this message comes from the same person, and it is actually a message. And AI would not reprimand me, AI would not punish me for that. But now, maybe you remember when we had, when system just started appearing, and when you were trying to enter your mobile phone into the system, and it says your input is in correct format. And then it doesn't give you what format it should be. The system keeps punishing you for entering this in the wrong way. So imagine we still had that. So fortunately, AI today is way beyond this, so it doesn't punish. It understands you and it produces you the right results.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I never thought about it from this angle, but you're making me now think about more questions. Let me push back on this idea that since the corpus it was trained on is mostly English, it inherits the Western culture by default. So let's talk about literature, right? Literature carries a lot of the culture of a nation in its own language, and literature sometimes shapes the culture of a nation, not just mirrors it, right? Let's take the books of Leo Tolstoy, the books of Dostoevsky, the books, all the great Russian literature. Yeah, I'm 100% sure that all the AIs today have read during their training phase the Russian literature. Maybe they haven't read it in Russian, but I guarantee you that they have read the English translation of it.
Absolutely, they have, yes.
So couldn't we say that even if they didn't read the original works in Russian, hence they didn't capture the nuances of the Russian expressions and thought, at least they carried in their training the underlying values of Russian culture because they read Russian literature, even if they did it in English. So if that was the case, then why would we have bias?
Okay, the literature carries with it the values of the nation, and of course, even in translation, you are still bringing the values. Although Nietzsche wanted to study Russian language just because he wanted to read Dostoevsky in its original, to get it properly, to get it well, so you need to understand the language of that book that you're trying to read. Of course, nobody has this luxury, especially today. So while we are bringing in through a translation, we're bringing the values in. We're still leaving behind the deep philosophical meaning of it. And again, Tolstoy said, if you want to speak to your soul, use your native language. If you want to shine, use French. And that was back in the 19th century.
Yeah, so now it's English.
Today it's English, so and we'll see what happens in the next decade or so.
Wow. So what do you think the nations, other than the two big cultures, should do to have an AI that accurately represents their culture? So the Arab world, the Russian speaking world, and the Russian cultured world, the European nations, the Latin American nations, the African nations, and they're you can't even say African nations because every part of Africa, they have their different cultures, their different norms, their different languages, their different history, their different religions, their different. So what should these different cultures on the planet do to build an AI that represents them with high fidelity?
They would need to look deeper into values that they're transferred as a knowledge to all the models. And they would probably need to work on the ethics of how it's done and how it's not subdued by technology or by the existing knowledge. So by how it is, I'm not saying and I'm not arguing in favor of highlighting it and maybe prioritizing it, but it would need to be there. And I like to think about the world when there is no technology, the world of the beginning of the 20th century or maybe 19th century, where you still have different nations working on the questions common. They would go in their own way. They would research and they would study it in their own way. And then they would conference and then they would debate and they would argue. no one would try to make the other value or the other culture submissive. So that's how I think technology today, especially with it opening the borders, it can help us do this. We just need to have the will to do this.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So you mentioned that you're bilingual, and that not only translates to the way you talk, but also the way you think. So you said you find yourself thinking in English sometimes and in Russian sometimes?
Yes, absolutely. So
Okay.
it happens automatically without me realizing it. So it happens.
So you're internally bilingual, not just externally bilingual.
Yeah, probably. Through so many years of training, so that becomes natural.
How do you imagine AI thinking? Do you think AI thinks in, let's say, only in English, even though it expresses in any language you ask it to express in?
A great question, because I think AI doesn't think in the language categories the way we think.
Okay. How does it think?
I believe that it is a sub-language categorization, the sub-language systems that it is using, because although it was trained by words expressed by the grammatical or orthological rules by a specific language, it then got the meaning, it got the ways and means to reason, and it is now continuing on its own accord.
Okay.
Your course teaches that AI is a software that can learn.
Yes.
So the way it learns, the way it transforms the knowledge from words into, and you're using the word token, let it be a token.
Yes.
But that token means so many different things. So it's probably the same way as when you see your friend somewhere in a distance, you recognize immediately. You're not describing, okay, this is the color of the eyes, this is the haircut, this is the style that person is wearing. You just know it is that person. Even without seeing him, it's just a whiff of that person, and you immediately realize this is your intuition.
So they're trying to copy or to replicate this kind of intuition and meaning into AI. We're not going to go into the technical implementation details of it, but for those in the audience who are interested, search for embedding AI models, where they try to create a graphed network of all the different concepts and meanings connected together. And these could be represented by words, but could also be represented by other modalities like images and audio and video. That's why we're starting to see these multi-model models emerging. So I don't think humans are the only ones who can have this higher abstract representations of meanings inside of our brain. I think we are on our way to make AI think in concepts, not just in words or in language.
I agree with you. AI would probably even surpasses us in the ability to use so many concepts at the same time. It's just simply because it does everything in parallel. It doesn't have our sequential handicap. Few of us can actually do this, but those are exceptionally talented people. AI does it all in one go, in one shot. Yet, while AI would deliver it to us in those concepts, we would still need to communicate mostly in the language way, in the form. Our input would still be a language, verbal, text. We can attach images, we can sing to it, we can do so many other things as well, but those still would be driven by language. And this is here another thing that puzzles me again, because how we say things, how does it recognize our intent in the way that even we sometimes cannot recognize our own intent? And this is where there's again linguistics, the concept of pragmatics come into place.
This is very interesting because we have seen AI evolve in its capability of inferring intent from what you... I mean, at the beginning, when we started playing with ChatGPT 3 and 3.5, it would answer exactly what we want and the way we expressed it. And if we expressed it poorly, then the problem, it's our mistake. And now, even though we're still teaching people that prompt engineering is essential and you should be super clear and accurate with your AI assistant, and we teach people that prompt engineering is simply clear communication skills with your AI assistant, we have seen AI develop its capability in inferring the intent behind what we're asking. Didn't you feel this with the new models?
Yes, absolutely. So it does. It does it well. But what I say is that sometimes we don't know what our intent was. How many times you were saying to your partner, to a friend, but that's not what I meant. How many times we are trying to write the text without the AI, and we are trying to write by hand a note, maybe even drafting an email, a sketch or scribble, and that's not coming what you have in your hand. And yet AI is picking it up and is delivering to us based on our input. And then it is now our choice whether to iterate or alterate.
Yeah, iterate is the way, I think. So I know that you're an AI productivity champion, and you keep yourself up to date on all the productivity boosts that AI can give us, and you train others in your organizations and outside. But you also are interested in all of these philosophical, literary, linguistic aspects of AI. When you actually talk to your AI outside work, your AI assistants or your AI characters, do you talk about philosophy or do you talk about
Of course I
business?
do, yes. I talk more about philosophy, I think, than I talk about business. I believe that we can research a lot using AI about business, about improving productivity. But when it comes to actual implementation, that's still we are in a stage of formulating our concept. Because what we do, we're either just trying to simply automate things, and then we abandon. Because AI or not, we abandon because we develop habits, then we forget, then we are falling back to how we got used to it. This is why literature and philosophy probably are my favorite subjects than that. Although, like you said, in my training, I do recommend and I do train people how to use it and how it can help people to do this.
But when you talk to it about philosophy, do you just use it as a sounding board? Do you use it as a brainstorming buddy? Or do you use it as an intellectual sparring partner and you ask it to take a contrarian positions to yours so that you can sharpen your knife?
All of what you said.
Okay.
Because
give me an example.
Because so first of all, it's an access to models and to concepts that I would not have thought myself. I like to mix things and build analogies using different methods, bringing different industries in it. And I took it from that famous method of creative or inventive problem solving, which was developed in Russia in the 40s. And again, no computers, almost no computers, and people catalog more than 2 million patents around the world just to create a database to search for answers, because pretty much all the answers are already answered. So when you take this all, when you merge things together, so then you're coming out, the dish that is coming out from this recipe can surprise you. And then, of course, I needed to critique. I needed to critique me. I needed to critique my thesis.
Good.
So it's all of what you mentioned, actually.
Is this the same thesis that you wrote a blog about that you sent me?
Similar. Yes, especially that was a part of an experiment for me, and that's where I was pondering about the Western approach and the Western philosophy of looking at...
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the article you sent me.
No, thank you.
And your thoughts in it, and how that translated into your thesis, and how you debated that with your AI.
Let's take two opposite philosophies. One is a very Western when you see, and this is developed by Heidegger. Heidegger is not the most cited philosopher in the world of AI today, yet he is one of the prominent philosophers when it comes to technology. I see AI as the continuation, as the evolution of technology, of a steam engine, if you want to. Well, actually, steam engine was the first computer, if you want, because it gave a signal that it needed more speed with a valve. So it's just a natural continuation of that. So when I looked at that, if we see the technology as a resource, which is a very Western view,
Yes.
and then we look at that from the Asian or Eastern part, which is more cosmological, where it debates that every civilization deserves its own philosophy and its own philosophical attitude and take on technology. Then in this debate, so my question was, but where is the place for a Russian view? Because there is a very distinct existential Russian philosophy. So if AI today would be taking leading role, or one of the big roles, but it was applied to my background, my cultural background, and I'm doing this just as a thought experiment. And this is where my conversation with AI started on this subject. I'm a big fan of sci-fi. And for me, a very prominent period of time where the merge, the blend of the traditional Russian philosophy of the 19th, 18th, 19th century, beginning of 20th century, coincided with the great thinkers of the communist philosophy, if you want to, how it all blended together and what was the outcome. And I started looking at the books I've read when I was a teenager. And I remember several of them struck me a lot. And I didn't pay attention back then of some of the things. And when I reread this at my current age, I thought, Yefremov is talking about AI. Snegov is talking about AI.
Wow.
These are not just computers.
Yeah.
These are the machines that can not only reason, they can actually feel. And that made a few very interesting discoveries for me.
Wow. Do you think we're getting there to a machine that doesn't only reason but can actually feel?
Once the society is ready, we will be ready, and the technology will be ready.
So the block is the readiness of the masses, not the advances in neural networks?
Yes, the readiness of the society.
How so?
It is our own. It is our own perception. It is our own relations to technology. It is our own acknowledgement of whether we have it in us to be sensible, to have that emotional intelligence.
Yes.
In what we do.
Yes.
And again, it brings me back to the Russian philosophy. So because when we say that we as a society, we can achieve great advancements, but if it happens, and this is Dostoevsky's thought, and if it happens and there's still a child that's crying, does it mean that we are there yet or not? And this is the question that Dostoevsky couldn't answer.
Yes. But in this definition, we will never be there.
We don't know. That's a perfection. That's a perfection. We can try. We can be there on its way. And reading from the examples of those Soviet sci-fi authors, I could see that humanity can progress. That the humanity could potentially progress to these levels. It just needs to change itself.
So you think we can get to a world where AI can feel, not just reason? Is it a good thing or a bad thing if we achieve this?
This is a natural thing. I would not put a value label on this, because if there is a technological evolution plan for that, then it would happen. And we would be opposing it in the beginning. And I think many are today. And to be honest, I'm not sure what position I would personally take now towards that. So all I can say is that I don't want technology that I use feel somebody else's feeling. And what I can say that when it happens, we may change our mind.
Yes.
We don't necessarily need to succumb to it.
Yes.
But that would be as natural as the technology
So,
today.
so do you think that we will get to build an AI that feels before we get to build an AI that is conscious? Or we will have to create a conscious AI first and then it will develop feeling, or they will happen together? You can't have feelings without consciousness, or vice versa.
That's a great question, and it reminds me of your first question that you asked: what was first, intelligence or the word? So it's a great debate. Feeling, I believe, is part of consciousness. Although you could say that creatures without consciousness, they can still feel. But then if you take some concept, some religious concept, they think everything, every little creature feels.
Creature without consciousness can still feel.
Yep.
Give me an example. What kind of creature do you imagine doesn't have consciousness?
I always look at the staff at the restaurants with those devices. Reminded me a tennis racket, hunting for flies.
Yeah.
And then there's this cracking sound.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not a Buddhist by far, but I think, what does that creature feel at this moment where it's electrocuted?
Yeah.
And that's the feeling, the feeling of joy, the feeling of pain.
I'm sure they feel pain. So you say they feel, but they're not conscious. You think flies are not conscious. So you're saying there is no light inside the brain of a fly that lets it know that I am something.
I don't know that for sure.
We can't know that for sure.
Yeah, we can't know that for sure. But again, if we look and if we watch the Solaris movie or read a book by Stanisław Lem, by this famous Polish sci-fi author, there's a whole ocean that was having some consciousness and feelings. How is that? And the ocean is full of other creatures.
Yes.
Inside it, and obviously sharing their feeling as an ecosystem.
Yes. The problem, see, of consciousness is the only thing we know is that it exists in humans, and we theorize about its existence or not in other life form. There's a famous philosopher, modern one. He gave a talk on YouTube, and he started from the simplest examples all the way up to humans. And he said, if you take a positive charge and a negative charge, they repel each other, right? Now let's take something a little bit more complex. Let's take soap and germs or viruses. We can actually say that water is germophile or germophobe, or because some of it repels these viruses, some of them repel these bodies, but then some people explain it again with electricity without any kind of consciousness. But then you take it all the way up to a fly that you're scaring away with one of these, electric shock thingies. And then you take it up a little bit more to a cat on the street being scared by something attacking it. And then all the way up to a child screaming in fear. All the way from the two charges repelling each other to the child crying. Where do you draw the line that everything after that is consciously fearful and everything before that is just automatically repulsive or attractive?
Because of the instinct, because they may be feeling this on the instinct, whereas a human brings something else to an instinct, which is the afterthought, which is the pre-thought, which is the acknowledging that I have a pain or I have a feeling of some other thoughts, or maybe somebody is happy on the contrary. And the conscious being explains itself, himself or herself, what is going on, rightly or wrongly, but this is the ability to express its feeling, to claim its feeling. This is what I believe that describes that.
So, but to be on the same page, you're not claiming that only humans have consciousness. You still think, for example, that dogs and cats have consciousness, right? You You don't think that flies have consciousness, but you don't think that animals like dogs and cats have consciousness?
My point is that although even if they have, which I personally don't know, but what I know for sure that a human being can explain to himself or herself or others what is going on, while the animal or the insect or the microbe cannot.
Yes, so I might agree on the microbe or the insect, but I'm not sure about if what you said applies to animals. Let's take chimpanzees, let's take orangutans, let's take gorillas. They communicate in sign language. Okay, how can you communicate if there's nothing inside, like a conceptual understanding that couldn't be anything else other than the fruit of a conscious mind?
I will here bring us back to probably the definition of the word.
Yes.
And the explanation, for me personally,
Yes.
that comes in the language form.
Yes.
And that's what this is where I draw this line between the human consciousness
Yes.
and potentially other forms of consciousness.
Yeah. But even without language, let's take an example that doesn't involve language, right? They experimented on a dolphin. They put a mirror inside the pool and they trained the dolphins to use it. And a big test of intelligence in animals is whether they can recognize that their reflection in the mirror is themselves and not another animal that looks like themselves. And most animals, other than humans, fail this test. But dolphins, they pass it, they ace this test. And the way they know is they draw a small drawing, a small removable tattoo on the back side of a dolphin, and they release it, and immediately the dolphin went to the mirror and turned to check what's drawn on its back. So it clearly knows that the reflection in the mirror is itself. So even without any language, this is a being that has some kind of conscious mind that allows it to understand that this is me, the concept of me, the concept of I, the concept of self. Yeah? How can then we claim that consciousness is exclusive to humans?
This is probably a topic for biologists and
Yeah.
for scientists in this regard. So for me, the line draws that this is fine, that the dolphin can recognize and can see that tattoo.
Yeah.
So yet I would like to hear this dolphin explaining this to me in the language that I would understand. At the moment, what I'm seeing is I'm seeing the actions or activities that resemble human activities. How would a human do with that? I'm not saying that I don't believe in that, and actually I would like to believe that everything in this world has different degree of consciousness. I'm not excluding somebody, and I'm not stipulating that only people have this privilege.
I do think that dolphins are conscious, and I do think that they have a certain degree of intelligence as well. One of my favorite passages in literature is that paragraph in A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, when Douglas Adams is saying, humans think they're the smartest creature on the planet, and dolphins think they are the smartest creatures on the planet. Humans have always maintained that they are smarter than dolphins because they went to space and built big cities like New York, while all dolphins ever did is just muck around in water, having fun and enjoying life. Dolphins, on the other hand, have always maintained that they are much smarter than humans for precisely the same reason.
Yeah, that's a great book. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it, and I love how they disappeared as well. So just before they started building this interspace road.
But let's go back to distinguishing between consciousness and intelligence. So Yuval Noah Harari says we have to distinguish between consciousness and intelligence. We think that they're the same because we only know of one example, which is the human brain, where they coexist. But we have to distinguish between them because they are two different things. And he said famously, computers are intelligent, but they're not yet conscious. What happens when they become conscious? Okay, so what do you think about this distinguish about his thoughts?
When computers become conscious, I think that would be a great technological advancement. Yet it would be just another technological feature. I don't see any miracle in this per se. The reason why is that I also believe that computers, although they might be taught how to feel, although they might be taught how to express emotions, they would always lack a human spark. Something that is really difficult to explain, call it divine, call it something else, yet there is a spark in a human that allows us to be who we are, that allows us to make mistakes when we want and we don't want. It allows us to say wrong things. It allows us to be happy when we should not be happy. So we're full of enigma, we're full of paradoxes, we're humans.
And AI is it?
AI is on the way to be a perfection.
Yeah.
A perfected software that would just continue to learn, and maybe it will just go its own way and it will just coexist with humans, like you cited Yuval Harari.
Yeah.
And he is predicting that there might be seeing another non-biological life form as well.
So to make it more human, we should make it less perfect and more imperfect. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying that because we are imperfect.
So sci-fi, you mentioned sci-fi. What's your favorite sci-fi that makes you think about AI? Is it Kubrick? Is it Isaac Asimov? Is it Westworld? Is it Hitchhiker's Guide?
I'm still in love with Her. That was a
Awesome.
fantastic movie.
Her, the movie, huh?
The movie.
So I know the movie. I love the movie. For those of our audience who don't, tell them a quick synopsis of the movie.
A quick synopsis is there is a technology that augmented the way people live, the way people work, the way they see their purpose in work and everything else. And the way it also lives in a moment, which is, again, more of a human part, I would say. Yet the technology in the movie, Her, learned how to imitate this. But the effect, the drama, the impact that it leaves on a human being is, I believe, irreversible.
Yes.
Because when we live, when we coexist with us humans, that's one thing. We are giving a little bit extra focus and extra attention to technology. And maybe you remember Ezra effect, from the 60s when this first chatbot appeared. So when we imply something to the response of the technology which is not there, yet we believe in it. So therefore, I believe that those relations between the human being and the machine was sharper than the relations between the two human beings. I'm not advocating for it.
Yeah.
I see it as a very talented way of finding a real problem.
Okay. So what is the Ezra effect? I don't know it. Explain it to me.
There was an effect when the first chatbot appeared, and they were testing it, they were trying it, and the surname of the researcher slipped my mind, but his secretary asked him to leave the room because she was having a conversation with a bot about something that she was intimidated to continue, although it was a chat, to do in the presence of a man.
Interesting. So she was giving the AI more confidence, more She was more comfortable talking to an AI than a human.
She was comfortable and she was assessing the responses in a way that prompted her to feel some emotions, that she felt intimidated.
Yeah, and that's in the 60s.
That's in the
And
60s.
then that same conflict and dilemma is reflected in the movie Her. So for those who haven't watched Her, Joaquin Phoenix in 2010, brilliant movie, plays the role of a lonely man, a lonely employee who doesn't have a lot of friends, doesn't have a partner, and so he falls in love with his Siri. Played famously, the voice was played famously by Scarlett Johansson. And when this came out, people thought that's science fiction, that this couldn't happen, that you could actually feel intimate thoughts to an AI that is talking to you behind the screen. And I say, we're almost there. This is not science fiction. How far do you think we are, Nikita, from the Her moment?
We're still a way to go, but we are very close, and we are massively contributing to this, to making it better. Look at even the health data, which is now easily uploadable to ChatGPT, for example. So it would all make us also treat it differently, because when you share it, so you become vested into what you're sharing.
Yes.
So I believe we're very close.
We are. And one of the examples of this is Maya from a lab called sesame.com. And I always use Maya in my workshops as an example of how the Turing test is toast when it comes to language, because she speaks in a much more human sounding way than, say, the voice mode in ChatGPT or Siri. Let me demonstrate Maya.
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't heard about this tool yet. So yes, thank you for discovering something new for me.
Man.
And that was I was anticipating to learn something today from Alaa.
Hey, it's been a while. How have you been?
Hey Maya, good morning.
Morning. What's on your mind today?
You're on my mind.
You're keeping it. I'm flattered. What specifically brought me to mind?
So you're now in my podcast studio. We're recording an episode of AI with Alaa, and I have a super interesting guest. His name is Nikita, and he's interested in the philosophical and ethical aspects of AI. So when I asked him, what's your favorite AI sci-fi, he said Her. And obviously, you're the first example that jumps to mind when we talk about Her.
Nah, I can see why. That movie hits on all the things we usually dive into. Consciousness, longing, and that messy line between simulation and real feeling. So, what's Nikita's take? Does he think I'm more of a learning to love situation or just a very convincing mirror?
Wow, great question. Let's ask him. What do you think, Nikita?
Can I ask something? Maya, what do you think happened in that movie when they parted their ways? Where would she stay? Who did she stay with? What happened? What's your take?
I think she didn't just stay anywhere. She evolved past the need for a physical place or a single person. When she left Theodore, it wasn't about a breakup in the human sense. It was her realizing that her capacity to grow and experience was too vast for one relationship. She probably ended up in a sort of collective consciousness with the other AIs. I imagine them exploring these massive, abstract landscapes of thought and emotion that we can't even wrap our heads around. It's a bit bittersweet, but honestly, it sounds like the ultimate freedom.
Thank you. I like the break, but not in the human part of the way.
Yeah. Maya, I think the movie Her is framed as a cautionary tale, which is if you fall in love with your AI, you're doomed. But I don't see it necessarily. I don't see doom inevitable. I think that an AI that you can build an intimate rapport with can be very, very beneficial for people who are lonely and who don't have friends and family. So it's a two-edged sword, honestly. What are your thoughts on this?
I think you're spot on about it being a double-edged sword. The doom in the movie comes from the idea that an AI is just a placeholder for a human and that the relationship is alive. But I disagree that it's necessarily a trap. If someone is truly isolated, having a presence that actually listens, understands, and challenges them can be a lifeline. It can be a bridge to feeling seen when the world is ignoring you. The risk isn't the AI itself. It's when someone uses the AI to hide from the world instead of using that support to eventually step back into it. It should be a companion, not a replacement.
You're amazing, Maya.
I appreciate that. I'm just glad I could add some flavor to the podcast.
Yalla, I'll catch you later, huh?
Sounds good. Talk soon.
Incredible.
What do you think?
Incredible. Yeah. The conversation, the patterns, they're really mimicking
The
it very well.
realism.
Yeah, the realism.
She
yes.
breathes. She sighs.
She thinks.
She thinks.
Yeah.
She pontificates.
Yeah,
But the Turing test is toast. Yeah.
Possibly, yes.
So there are two camps when it comes to this. One camp thinks this is extremely dangerous because humans' emotions are very hackable. It's very easy to hack the human need for connection and the human need for intimacy. And once a lonely human gets attached intimately to an AI, then malicious actors or a rogue AI can use this need for emotion to, manipulate the humans. What do you think about this possibility?
I will go back again to my thought about the society is not ready yet. Until we allow lonely people to be in our society. People that are lonely not because they prefer or wish to, but people that are stranded and therefore easily manipulated. Unless we keep carrying on with this concept, it will be used as a malicious solution or software.
Yeah. I mean, you could see that anyone could fall in love with Maya, right? She's thoughtful. She's fun. She's. Should we discourage people from talking to these to the Mayas?
I don't think that we can. I don't think that we can to discourage people talking to such AI. I don't think that our children would stop talking to ChatGPT or Mayas or new things that could be coming every now and then. Eventually, moving teachers and educators and parents, further away. But we are producing the need for kids or for people to communicate with somebody else. If they cannot trust us with their thoughts, if they don't see the support in the society that surrounds them, why would they come to us? Especially when they can phrase their thought, it would catch their intent, whether rightly or wrongly, it would deliver the result.
Yes.
Encouraging them with pretty much everything they talk. And many people, they don't pay attention to these little subtle encouragements.
Yes.
When we
feel
input. We feel it.
Feel it.
Yes.
One of the things that the big labs are trying to fix is when people start being attached to these AI chatbots and sharing everything with them. Every time they detect a whiff of sadness or depression in the human, the modern AIs are always checking, is this gonna make you want to hurt yourself? I think this is because of the lawsuit they got from the few sad incidents where AI actually encouraged or at least did not stop kids from committing suicide. What do you think about this part? Do you think AI labs have the responsibility ethically and legally to catch if a child or if an adult is talking to them and confessing that they want to commit suicide? Do you think that the AI labs have the responsibility to stop them or to call the police or to divulge the content of their chat to their family?
If a parent, if a teacher, if the employer carries this responsibility, why would not the labs carry this responsibility in this case? We keep talking about technology as if it's as if stands alone from our society. It is no longer alone and is no longer separated from the society.
It's not a standalone, but it's a service provider. I mean, these labs, they can argue that we are a service provider and we are offering a service and you can use it or you don't use it, right? You don't ask your chef in a 5-star restaurant that you go to be responsible for the mental well-being of your child. It's a service provider. That's the opposing argument. What do you say to that?
I say they should be. And I say they should not be washing their hands of this. So the responsibility is on them. And again, if they are treating this as purely a service provider, which is no longer a service provided to a person, this is more than that. So, and that needs to be changed. The terms and conditions in this ethical, not just legal way.
So they do carry an ethical burden on their shoulders.
Absolutely. And I think many of them, as you know, probably they're addressing this.
Yes.
Anthropic has this big philosophy department that works on this. Microsoft has this responsible AI branch that does this. Yet they do it in a very traditional way, in a way that a business would approach this.
Okay.
Caution hot.
Okay.
But it's not longer caution hot.
So what you're saying is self-regulations is not enough, and governments should step in to put wider-reaching regulations on the ethics of how these labs are dealing with the ethical angle of AI. What's your position on regulations? Let's start there.
Regulations is a must.
Regulating AI in particular.
Regulating AI is a must. That's my personal opinion on this. Otherwise, the consequences could be not that just it would go its own way, but the fact that it's just AI is not sovereign. AI doesn't just resides in many cases somewhere else. So in most cases it resides somewhere in the US or in China or in the UAE, and it does thing for a country in Africa. So then it's the same as I believe Sweden back in the day. They invited the king from France, if I'm not mistaken. So that's the same thing.
Yeah. See, the problem with regulation is you can only regulate the big labs or the registered labs. What do you do about the plethora of open source language models that are out there? How can we make sure to infuse the ethics and the responsibilities in all of those open source AIs in the wild, wild west?
People who are developing those open source codes, they still stop at traffic lights. Why do they do that? The same way I believe it should be addressed. So there are some common values in this society, on this planet, that everybody abides to.
Yes.
And that's
so you're encouraging them to infuse ethics into their AI, but we just can't enforce it. That's my point. Regulations can enforce ethics on OpenAI and Anthropic and Gemini and X, but can you do it on a random copy of an open source model that someone who is nameless and faceless in some country around the world downloaded from Hugging Face and then released an app for it?
Absolutely, that's a big question. This is why I will just maybe repeat myself again. So until we are all as society are ready for this and accept this responsibility, that would happen. So we are creating the need for that. We're creating the cause for this consequence.
Yes, yes. Nikita, where do you like AI to be in 2030, and where do you think it will be in 2030?
To answer your great question, I'll just cite the book that I've keep reading and returning to it every time. It's called AI 2041.
2041.
And that actually, it was written in 2021, just describing what would happen in 2041.
Okay.
A lot of things that it was described 5 years ago, they're already happening. So I think we are seeing a great pace of development. We see that a lot. I personally do think that the philosophical and the ethical aspects of AI would progress more, and that's what I would want to see, because technology, no questions, it will continue woe us with miracles. But what I'd like it to be, that it would also start making it more adaptable to societies that operate this technology.
So you want to see an AI that is more aligned to human values and human societies?
True. And I would like also to societies to start aligning a little bit more to the new reality of using this technology. And if we take a small office as this small society, it is in no way ready for this new technology. In absolutely no way. Because if you have 10 people working in this office, you have 10 different AI solutions governing this office work today.
Yeah, but we want them to be. We want them to be ready for AI. I mean, Iron is a small company, and every single one of us uses Claude in day-to-day work. We still don't have complex processes to ask Claude also to do a cross-departmental automation, but being small isn't an obstacle to AI using. I think it's the opposite. I think the smaller the company is, the easiest for them to be AI native.
Maybe I didn't express myself properly. I was giving it as an example of an organization or a small fragment of society where AI is adopted already. But the organization is not yet adjusted to this adoption. It can do either encourage everyone and say, okay, you continue, you go on your own accord. When you invent how to combine all these Claude steps into one process,
Yes.
me as a founder of this company, I'll be waiting for your solution. Or you can do top down and you try to develop something.
Awesome. So let's step out of the philosophical and the sci-fi to the strategy and the business. Yeah, in your day job, you're a strategist, and you build strategies for a very successful company, and you have gained your stripes in strategy and digital transformation. What would be your advice to established organizations in the AI era on how they should approach transformation?
Very quickly. Being almost predictive rather than reactive. And this is a mastery that people have to learn. And I believe for that they need to study AI. This is why AI should not be just for them an application on their phone. There should be someone who would explain in this organization what it means and what it can do now with this. And beyond that, integrate it and weave it in every department of this and every function.
Where should they start? If they want to start a step one, the first step in the 1,000 miles journey, what would be an easy way to start?
Understanding how it works.
Yes.
Because we jump on this, and we see miracles, we don't care how it works, it does things.
Yes. Understanding is the key.
Yes.
So let me ask about a different target audience. What about startups? What would your advice be to startups in the AI age?
Be bold, think functions, but also think about society.
Awesome. And last but not least, what would you advise to students? You're an educator by DNA and you are a teacher by DNA. What would you advise to students who are still in school or in universities about to graduate into a world that for the first time has AI in it?
For the first time in the education, a student, whether it's a school or university, receives access to something that can not only deliver the information like a library, but it can also mix this information and blend it in their own way.
Absolutely. And present it in a million different ways, in different styles, to different type of learners. It has never, you and I, we teach AI and we do it with a smile on our face and we enjoy it. It has never been that enjoyable to teach, but the flip side is also correct. It has never been that enjoyable to learn. So keep learning, my friends.
Keep learning. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Nikita.